Welcome to Grit, Growth, Grace podcast.
We're your hosts. I'm Crissy Morgan.
And I'm Kim Gibbs. This space is for women who are ambitious, driven, and ready to make a meaningful impact.
We get it. Navigating success in male dominated industries can feel very isolating, but you don't have to do it alone.
Here we'll talk about the real challenges, celebrate the wins, and give you practical tools to grow with confidence.
Because it's not just about making it to the top, it's about bringing others with you and thriving in the process.
Let's jump in and get started. Welcome to Grit, Growth, Grace podcast, from struggle to strength, overcoming imposter syndrome. I'm so excited to be here today with you, Crissy, because I feel like overall you are fantastic at navigating through imposter syndrome, and I am striving to be fantastic at navigating through imposter syndrome.
Well, you are fantastic. So we definitely want to talk about how to overcome imposter syndrome. What is it and why it matters so much, especially for women in male dominated industries?
Yes, I definitely think that imposter syndrome is that persistent doubt, that sense of being a fraud, or that your accomplishments really aren't actually accomplishments, like maybe they were a luck or something like that. And when you are a woman in a male dominated industry, or even just in the leadership role, you are usually a minority in some role, in some way. And you can feel like your inside voice is telling you, you have no idea what you're talking about, do you? And you just sort of perpetuate that. So that's what it's about.
Yeah, I mean, we want to share some stories of what, we struggle with, some of our personal struggles, and give some tips to people out there to help them how to navigate through and get through that imposter syndrome.
Shenanigans. We'll call it shenanigans.
We'll call them shenanigans.
So today we're going to do 4 parts, pretty straightforward, but that way you can have some pretty good takeaways, actionable items, what imposter syndrome really is, and why it seems to hit women harder, because it truly does hit women harder, how confidence and responsibility feed into each other for better or worse. So feeling accountable and feeling confident, it's hard to navigate that sometimes. How to stop the spiral of negative self-talk and recognize how far you've come. And then why saying yes to opportunities, even when they scare you. So that fear component, so you can move forward.
All right, well, let's go. Let's do it.
Okay, let's go. So we're going to talk about what is imposter syndrome and why it's worse for women. Understanding the root of imposter syndrome is pretty, I think it can be surface level, honestly, for this conversation, because we don't have to really talk about all of history and time, but there's a ton of societal expectations on women. I think with social media, there's even like a heightened expectation. It's insanity. Perfectionism, and perfectionism that's like way outside the realm of anything that seems even achievable, and then doubting yourself, like, did I hit that goal? Am I really that way? And then a lack of representation. So even if you do feel some sort of confidence or a win, you get somewhere like a board meeting or a large meeting of making decisions in your organization, and you're the only woman, and that makes you go like, oh crap, like all of that underlying social stuff sort of bubbles up, and that's hard. So how do you use the external validation? How do you see that impact from external validation, sort of almost in fueling your imposter syndrome?
Well, it's pretty easy for anyone, especially women, to fall into the trap of measuring how others perceive us, looking for that constant acknowledgement or approval as like our primary source of confidence. And that's something that if you don't get that validation, you can be left feeling very inadequate, even when you have the skills and you are making great contributions to the organization. But when you're a woman, especially in male dominated fields, the lack of consistent acknowledgement can really deepen that self-doubt. So we tend to overcompensate by, we work harder, we're trying to, be more perfect, or just constantly seeking that approval. And especially now with as much social media that's out there, people are only posting the happy stuff, the happy pictures of the family, the success stories, the promotions. They're not posting, all the struggles that it took to get that promotion, or the years of hard work and education and training. They're just saying, "Oh, look at this promotion." So you don't see all the grind and everything, because people aren't posting that. They're just, posting all the good, happy stuff. So it's really important to break free from that need for that external validation, and develop the self-validation practices, like looking at what are the wins, what's the growth that you've had, so that you're not just constantly seeking that externally. And so what do you think, Kim? How do you think that the gender norms contribute to that?
Yeah, I think that for me personally, that and I think any business owner and social media also sort of really distorts this. Anybody who owns a business knows that owning a business is not like the cutting the ribbon moment. Owning the business is all the other crap, the putting the toilet paper on the roll because 17 other people that work for you that are men didn't do it. It's filling the soap container in the kitchen of your break room. And as a woman and a hardworking person, right? I feel good working. I just have this like almost like cleanup mentality, like it's an expectation of me. And so then I'm finding myself not doing the things that do make me feel like a powerful leader. And I find myself essentially feeling like a Cinderella on the floor, scrubbing the floors, because that's my place versus actually doing the thing. And I think it's really common for business owners, but I know it's also common for any women that are in that higher space. Like it's almost like, oh, well, won't you pour the water for the men at the boardroom? Like, or I'll take a glass. Like that's straight up happened to me. Oh, you're pouring water? I'll take a glass. I couldn't imagine in a million years that I would ask the guy next to me to pour me a glass of water at a board meeting. But it's happened. Yeah. So one other thing that I do that I think happens because I'm a woman and I'm working on it, but it does seem to work, is my leadership style gets misinterpreted. And I think this is common for any woman who is really driven, but my leadership style is very direct and curious. And I want to remove barriers. I'm fast moving. I like momentum. So day one, I did an onboarding today. I had a very specific conversation, and I do this with everyone. This was just a shipping person. It wasn't anybody that like was going to be working directly next to me all day long. But I, in the initial greeting, I was like, okay, so this is my style. So please don't ever take it personally if I come and ask you a question of why something is this way or that way. This is me just trying to make sure that you're having success or the organization is having success. And my style is to make sure that you have the easiest route. But my style is direct. Like I'm going to come up and just ask the question. I'm not making an assumption. I'm just asking a question. And so I literally give a disclaimer on that every single time I have a new hire. I give this is my delivery thing, and my husband doesn't have to do that.
So, Kim, I think that's so true, especially when you are very direct. A lot of times, people say, "Oh, she's such a bitch," or something along those lines. But really, it's just a matter of trying to just have a voice, and get across what it is that you need. And that can be really difficult. But when I've worked in multiple different industries, and it's been with a lot of men, and you've got to go into that room, and it's just full of men, and they're all, relatively seasoned. They've been around, they've got a lot of experience, and it can make you feel pretty small. Like, I've just felt like very inadequate, like I didn't belong. And I really had to work on defining myself and who it was that I wanted to be as a leader. Because if I didn't define myself, They were going to do it for me. And so I've spent a lot of time really focusing on trying to identify what is my leadership identity, who do I want to be in that space, and just really owning my expertise instead of waiting for permission, and not asking for permission, just going and getting it.
That is absolutely correct. I personally can attest to this because I've seen you grow over the last couple of years, really into this amazing leader and confident in that leader. And I know that was like a deliberate choice. And anybody who's listening, this is your permission. Do that. Go for it. Even if you are one of even if you look exactly the same as everybody in the room, if you're feeling like an imposter, define who you are, because everyone will define you if you don't. And so just go for it. Be the role model for yourself.
How do you use visualization before you've got to go do something like that, big meeting or presentation? What is something that you do to help prepare?
Yeah, so for me, visualization's been a big part of, I don't know that I've connected the two in the beginning, meaning visualization helped me mitigate imposter syndrome. And I wouldn't even say it made it go away completely, because that's really not the thing, but it made me refocus, realign myself. So visualization is something that I learned in sports, but a lot of people do a ton of different visualizations. If you do a miracle morning, if you've ever watched The Secret, there's a ton of things that have things about visualization. So for me, when I'm in my workspace, I always try to come up with the positive outcome that I'm really after before going into a challenging situation, or a situation where I'm not confident that I can get exactly what I want. So if I really truly think about what is the best thing for the organization, or what is the best thing in this situation. So I have a little story I'll share. I have a fantastic team member. He's worked with us for a very long time. Him and I have developed his skill set. He's now in a leadership role, but he had come to a point where he was maxed out, meaning he felt like he couldn't be a better leader because he was out of capacity to be able to do his other vital functions well. And I knew this based on just communication, not a complaint. There wasn't ever like, hey, I can't do my job. That never happened, because that's not the type of person he is. But when I knew it was time for me to discuss how were we going to solve that problem, because that not being able to do it wasn't the answer. I had to really think about, what did I really want to happen at the end of that conversation? What do I really want the business to have at the end of that conversation? And how do I empower him and myself to get to that conclusion? And so I really thought about the end in mind. And then when I went and had the conversation and said, okay, these are the things we're really after. What do you think we can do to get those things done? What do you think you can contribute? Or what system do you think we could put in place? What resource can I offer you? Let's brainstorm. Do you want to take a leadership class? Do you want to do, let's talk about those things. And just that dialogue, and that consistent dialogue, essentially broke down the barriers of me feeling like, I don't know how to motivate this guy. He's already like gone as far as he can. And he's essentially telling me he can't go any further, but not because of him, but because of other limitations. So it helped me get over the like, oh, I don't really want to go talk to him, because nothing would have gone bad had I not gone and talked to him. We just would have never gotten to the actual goal, at the end goal. So, okay, give me the takeaways, girl.
All right, well, let's sum it all up. One, if you don't define yourself and your leadership identity, the industry is going to do it for you. So, be proactive, do that yourself, own who you want to be. Even if you want to be more, you've got to do more. In order to become someone you've never been, you need to do something you've never done. So, begin with the end in mind. Visualize what success looks like, and how you want to get there, and get out of your comfort zone and find your voice.
I love it.
Kim, let's get into building your confidence and leadership persona. This one I absolutely love. It's really inspired by Beyonce's Sasha Fierce. When I first learned about Sasha Fierce and how she created this persona, because she had such anxiety about performing on stage, that she created this person who was confident and didn't have these anxious feelings. And I learned that that was a great way when you are struggling with some confidence to build this alternate persona that is a true strong leader.
Okay, I agree. I've seen you do this, and so I would like for you to share how stepping into that leadership persona looks like in practice for the listeners.
So, one of the things that I did, especially after learning about this, was I started to think for myself, what does that strong leader look like for me? What is it that I want, and how do I want to come across to my team? And so I built my own leadership persona, and I call her Layla the Lioness. Not a lot of people know about her because I keep her to myself, but she's strong, she's confident, she's courageous, she's fierce. And whenever I am super nervous, I might have a presentation to give to the upper management team, senior leadership, or I'm doing some presentations for a large group of people or for a lot of the engineers, especially when I know there's going to be a lot of men involved. I get that imposter syndrome feeling, and I get that lack of confidence and nervousness. And I think, okay, I'm going to pull Layla out because she's confident, she's strong. I know she's going to go in and she's going to be the badass and she's going to kill it. And that has really helped me to be a better leader, especially when I'm having that nervousness. So what's something that you do, Kim, to help improve your confidence and change your mindset, or maybe your outward appearance to
Yeah,
help you with that confidence?
yeah, I definitely probably don't have a title for my persona, but I can tell you absolutely, if I know I'm going to go into a situation that I'm going to be uncomfortable in as far as feeling impostery, that I 100% uh, dress to impress. So, and I do that consistently at work already. I dress at a level that I want to hold myself. So, but if I'm going to be in a situation where I know I have to be somebody that I'm not 100% comfortable thinking I am, I go for it. I have a little anecdote about the dressing, but let me do a couple of other tidbits that I do that will play into this story as well. The other thing I do, and I do this every day, but I do this 100% if I know I'm going to have to walk into a room where um, I will feel uncomfortable, is I want to walk with purpose. So I walk from point A to point B with vigor, and I smile, and I say hello. And I know that's a very American Portland thing, but I definitely make myself approachable, but clearly I have a mission, right? So it's not just like I'm there just to hang out and I'm somebody's assistant. I'm there to shake your hand and say hello and smile. And that momentum, the little physical momentum of that when you walk into a room really, really helps. So I'll tell a little story. In 2010, uh, when you own a manufacturing plant, anybody who owns a manufacturing plant, you you deal with banks all the time. And when you deal with banks all the time, you have a relationship banker, and your relationship banker invites you to stuff. And I would say 80% of the time, the stuff isn't worth my time for my industry, but there's absolutely seminars and things that they do put on that is worth it. And it is a good networking opportunity if it is something that's geared for something that you're interested in. And so I was at one that was for my county, and it was manufacturing. It was about essentially funding growth in manufacturing in our county. But it was the bank that was putting it on that my business had a bank account at, and we had lines of credit at. So I felt obligated to go. I knew the chances are that I was going to be the only woman there. It's manufacturers and a bunch of bankers, and owners of manufacturing plants, not just, anybody. It's mostly the people that are having the relationship with the banker. So, or CFO, we're talking higher level leadership. So I found this bright red belt. Can't believe I did this. This bright red belt, like patent leather bright red. This is in 2010. PF, I am not a very stylish person. And yes, I'm like the person who has to buy the mannequin. That's my level of style. So I buy this really bright red belt. I have this pencil skirt I know is like, it's just a black pencil skirt. And I have this white blouse. And that was what I was going to originally wear, was just the white blouse and black pencil skirt. And I was like, no, I gotta make an impact. So I went and bought this humongous bright red belt and I wore it in that whole thing. And let me tell you, it got attention. I mean, no one said anything because no one knows what to say, but it definitely gave me confidence because people looked at me. So yeah, that's my yeah. So
I love it.
I know that's something that you do, that we all do, but you are fantastic at it. And that is about preparation, like before the thing happens, that you know, because you know yourself. Talk to me about what you do for preparation.
Well, when it comes to being prepared, I always like to get as much as I can as far as the data and actual facts. Um, I don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but being prepared can definitely help you have a much higher level of confidence. And when you can speak as objectively as possible with facts and data, and you can take the emotional piece out, that really diffuses situations where tensions can be high because when you have the facts, you have the data, you took the time to get prepared. It helps give you, you know, credibility and respect from the people that you're working with or the client that you're working with. But also, it's not as subjective. It's not like your opinion versus my opinion. You know, the facts are the facts, and the data doesn't lie. So it definitely makes it a lot easier and helps build that level of confidence when you can prepare. And when you're not prepared, that's when, you know, you have those anxious feelings. So take the extra time, if especially going into meetings or presentations, take that extra time because it's going to boost the confidence level and it's going to help you really get the point across when you have those facts and data.
Yeah, and I think, especially as a woman, because we're perceived as emotional, when you have facts and data going into that kind of situation, if somebody else is giving you that emotion back, it's diffused immediately because you just know the facts. Like you're not there trying to make anyone feel any certain way. You're just giving information. And that I feel like allows for so much less of that other uncomfortable feeling of anxiety. So let's talk about the quick takeaways from this segment. Confidence isn't a feeling, it's a habit. So definitely work that habit, whether it's a Sasha Fierce or a visualization. Be the person you want to be. So think about the end in mind, right? And that can be through the conversation, but it can also be like, hey, I know in 20 years, I want to have a beach house or whatever it is, right? Be that person now so that you can get to that place. And then being prepared. If you know that you're going to be in a situation where that imposter syndrome is going to show up and make you feel uncomfortable, be prepared. It's so, so meaningful.
100%.
All right, Crissy. So we're moving on to recognizing and managing negative self-talk. This is something that I probably have a black belt in negative self-talk, so I'm very aware of it. And I know you also have a judge that lives inside your head. So when we identify the judge, we want to talk about that today. Talk about the inner critic that always seems to question your worth, especially when you do have a win or something that does validate something that you're like, I did it. I did it. And how to recognize when imposter syndrome is showing up. So like recognizing that the judge is saying an untruth.
Mhm. Why don't you share with us a time when you caught yourself doubting yourself? How'd you flip the script there?
So one of the easiest ways, like if I hear the judge in my head saying like, you're not going to be able to get what you want out of the situation, or nope, you can't, no, that's not for you. They're not going to believe that you know how to get this done. Especially with leading men, I try so hard to be curious. So if I approach them with curiosity, and even the judge, like say, dismiss the judge, let me really be curious about this. Like, why am I? Why is that even a truth? It's not a truth. So I shut my judge down or shut my inner critic down by asking questions about with genuine curiosity. It has to be genuine. You can't just come in and be flippant, but to find out like really what it is that is making you feel that way. So let's say I want an outcome from a productivity outcome. If I'm just going ablazing and because I'm uncomfortable and my judge says you can't ask them to do that, you have no idea how to make them be more productive because you're not a machinist, I won't have success. But if I go in with curiosity, 100% they're going to jump on board and we're going to find a solution and we're going to get the same outcome. And my judge just went to the park. What about you? Tell us a way to get rid of your negative self-talk.
Uh, Definitely, we talk about this all the time in all of our episodes, in all of our meetings. You gotta track the wins, the brag book, keeping track of the successes. That really helps silence that self-doubt when you can look back and say, here's all the wins that I've had, here's all the accomplishments that I've had, or I might have had a failure here, but here's what I learned from it. So really just recognizing everything that you have done, everything that you have accomplished, that really just helps squash the judge. When the judge says you can't do it, be like, you know what? I did do this before. I did have a positive outcome. And that can really just squash the self-talk as well. So
Yeah, and I think the tracking, it really is helpful in a lot of ways. Even if it's a like you do the vision board and you save your vision board and you look back at your vision board 3 years later and you're like, oh, I did lose 10 pounds. Good for me. Like it can be little. It doesn't need to be elaborate by any means. I do know that this is something that I feel like you are much better at than and I'm on my training wheels of, and this is to use the art of the pause in the situations that you might go in thinking one thing's going to happen and then things derail. Tell us about the pause.
well, first of all, you're an amazing cheerleader. So thank you so much. Um,
So,
you, you, I don't need imposter syndrome. I just need you to help me feel better. So, but taking a pause, I like to call them my timeouts. I do this at work. I do this at home all the time. If the conversation is starting to go off the rails, emotions are getting heated, maybe you can't talk with facts and data or anything like that because now you're just screaming back and forth, especially if you're at home. Hopefully you're not doing that at work, but I'll say it in many different ways. Sometimes I'll be like, "Hey, I need a timeout," or let's put a pin in it, or you know what? I think that the emotions are getting too heated right now. Let's take a small break. Let's come back to it once, we've had a chance to cool down and start thinking about it. But the key here, when you ask for the pause or you say that you need the timeout, is making sure that you follow up. So if you say, oh, let's take a timeout or let's put a pause on this for right now, and then you don't follow up, you lose credibility. And then people are less willing to have that timeout in the future because they know that you're just trying to do that to avoid the conversation. So really important to just take that time out and just understand that's important. If you keep going at it, and you keep arguing back and forth, or you're having some really negative conflict, nobody wins in those situations. It's really important to understand that too. It's like the tube of toothpaste. Once you squish the toothpaste out, you can't get it back in. So really important to use that effectively. Just ask for the timeout and then make sure you come back and say, but let's get back together later this afternoon at 2 o'clock, or let's schedule the meeting right now so that you know that we're going to come back to it. And so that's the important part with
yeah,
taking the pause.
Yeah, and I would add to that that if you do end up in a situation where you had an agenda, let's say, and you did prepare, and then the person is being emotional and brings up something else that's super valid, I've done even set both meetings, but separate, so that
Mhm.
they feel like, okay, we need to take a moment and I need to think about this other thing as well. And we need to come up with some solutions. I need you to do these things and I'll send you an invite right now. And then I send the invite right then, so that there is that sense of urgency component, but then
Mhm.
also follow up. And I think
Right.
the reset also then means you can go back to your drawing board and go back to La La Lioness, or to visualizing the outcome, or even to telling your judge to shut it. So, yeah.
Right.
Takeaways from this little segment was recognizing your self-doubt or your inner critic and challenging it. Like, is that a truth? That, like, I maybe it's not true. Maybe your inner critic's
Mhm.
lying to you. There's a high probability. Use curiosity to shift from fear or from like force to learning. And so instead of essentially forcing your agenda, using the curiosity, it diffuses a ton of things. And then pausing, I would say, is probably one of the biggest challenges I have, but I know if I can master that, that I will become such a better leader, because I will be able to come into situations much more prepared, and less emotional in a negative way, right? Like fear
Mhm.
emotion. So there's no rush to fill the silence. Pausing is important. And I think you're
And
really
it,
good at that.
well, thank you. It gives you that opportunity, especially to if you don't know the answer, you
Yeah.
can always take the time to go investigate or get information and let people know, I'll get back to you.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
sometimes I would say even the pause allows you for you to actually really identify the issue. Because sometimes you'll end up in a situation where you went thinking you were going to solve one set of, do a brainstorming session, and all of a sudden you've got a laundry list of HR issues, and you're like, wait a second here, I was just trying to figure out how to get more productivity, and now I actually have 17 HR issues. So I think the pause definitely allows for all of those resets to happen.
Sure
Yeah.
does.
The power of saying yes and taking action. Why saying yes to opportunities is the key to growth and moving through that imposter syndrome and hopefully squashing that imposter syndrome. Um, I want to share a little story about uh, not accepting your leadership invite, because I had a significant amount of self-doubt, and I was worried you'd be like, yeah, this lady just owns a little machine shop in the corner of Oregon and doesn't know anything about anything. And so I was like,
So, what made you change your mind? Why did you end up saying yes then if you were nervous?
well, I was nervous, and I was worried that I wasn't going to give you value, right? Like I didn't feel like I had value for you. And so that was my imposter syndrome. Like, why I'm going to have to be, she's this, you know, high level person in a large manufacturing plant. That is not what I am. I had all of these little tapes, but I also knew that I was a mom now, and that was something that was like way more challenging than I ever anticipated. And then balancing that with work. So I knew I needed someone who lived in the world of a male dominated field, who was a woman, and was also really driven, because the way we found each other was through a group or a cohort of people who are high performers, and so that that's a type of person essentially that you've been somewhat vetted in the context that I knew you were amazing. I just thought you were going to not think I was amazing, but I don't know what it was, but I just said yes. And it truly has been, instead of you finding out I'm a fraud, you've essentially helped me figure out how not to be a fraud and held me accountable to that.
Well, it's about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. I mean, we were both in very uncomfortable positions. Um, we both work in manufacturing, heavily, heavily male dominated. We're both mothers. Um, and, you have to just really focus on getting comfortable with the fact that you are just always going to be uncomfortable if you want to continue to grow. And it's using fear as that momentum to
Yep.
lean into the discomfort, and that's how you're going to grow. And for me and for us, and what we've learned is it doesn't have to be these giant leaps every day. It just has to be these small actionable things, little tiny things every single day to push past the self-doubt. It's just, do the thing, get the power, right? Do the thing, do the small actionable thing, and you don't have to really do these big giant things to be success and have
Yeah.
success.
And I think saying yes, I mean, I know that you actually worked really hard to get to be part of that leadership group, and you said yes to doing that. I mean, I don't know how many, well, I don't know anybody other than you in that group that worked the kind of way you did to get to be a part of that group, because most of people that are in your position, their leader brought them in, right? So
Mhm.
they just brought them in, versus you actually had to navigate the way to get in. And I'm super grateful that I said yes, because I now have somebody that's willing to hold me accountable to my little yeses all the time.
Right? And that's the greatest thing about leaning into the fear,
Mhm.
um, and just saying yes.
Yeah,
And even if, like you said, even if you don't feel like you're ready, maybe you don't feel like you're ready for that promotion or ready to do that presentation, do it anyways.
yeah,
Take the extra time to prepare, and then lean on someone like, you and I have, like, we have a great accountability relationship. Find that person that's going to be your cheerleader, that's going to say how amazing you are. Like, I have learned so much from you, and you have pushed me so much to say yes to things that I probably would have shirked away from or been afraid to do. And you've helped give me the courage to do that. So yeah, it's just so important to just say yes, even if you don't feel like it.
yeah. And I think one of the things I was just thinking about while you were saying all of those things is that people probably don't know this, but you and I have never met face to face. So if you need somebody to be supportive of you, like, you could start with not ever meeting that person face to face. You could even start not having an actual verbal conversation. It could just be like somebody that you meet in this context that is a high performer, is driven, is a woman, and they're willing to say, like, hey, what is your Q1 goal? Or what can I support you with? Or you support somebody, because supporting somebody else does make you feel like like, once I realized you could game for me, I felt way more settled in who I was than before, because I didn't want you to waste your time. Frankly, I value time very highly, and I didn't want you to waste your time with me. And when I realized that we were going to gain a lot from each other, I was like, oh, I'm so grateful I said yes.
Yeah. I'm grateful too. Thank goodness.
Yeah. So closing up, let's talk about imposter syndrome. Doesn't mean we're not good enough, and it doesn't mean you're a fraud. It just probably means that you're in a place that you worked your butt off to get to, and now you get to work your butt off harder to stop feeling like an imposter. So it just keeps
Right.
growing. So know that, and know that there's women out there that do it all the time, every day. And women, and you don't even have to be in a career. I mean, I'm sure people walk into kindergarten with their kindergartner and are going, oh, I'm just not going to be the mom that the other parents want me to be. Like, I'm not going
Mm.
to be the mom that brings the cupcakes, and I'm going to be judged for that. Like, yeah,
Yeah, and when you hear that judge and the judge is like, "You don't belong here," you be like, "Yeah, just watch me." Or, "You can't withstand the storm." Be like, "No, I am the storm.
yeah,
I do belong." Just
yeah,
shut that judge down.
yeah. And it's just not worth it, because it's a significant amount of energy that's going to
Hmm.
just not worth it. But identifying it and shutting it down, and recognizing the difference between, like, oh, actually, I shouldn't go off the edge of a cliff, versus well, I'm just walking into a kindergartner room, and if they ask me to make cupcakes, I will problem solve my way out of that because I don't have time for making cupcakes, but I will figure out how to have cupcakes at the end.
So Kim, I was gonna say, why don't you give us, can you give us some recap of what?
Yeah, let's
you
do
took
the
away?
recap. Let's do the recap. Imposter syndrome is common, especially for women. You know, we are supposed to be perfect. Ta-da. Confidence is built through preparation and mindset shifts, and that's 100%. And I would say visualization too, and that I would say that's part of preparation. Wow. Preparation. Recognizing negative self-talk is crucial. So you hear that inner critic, squash it.
Shut it down.
Yeah. And taking action, you know, I'm all about that action, boss. Saying yes, do the yes.
Do the thing.
Do the thing.
Well, we would love to hear from all of you out there. We'd love to hear anything that you want to share with us about imposter syndrome, what you took away from this episode, or share some stories with us, or how we might be able to help you.
Yeah. I'm excited for next time. We're going to be talking about building genuine connections and being really driven and building genuine connections. That's a fun dichotomy. So see you next time. Thank you so much.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for spending time with us on Grit, Growth, Grace podcast. We hope today's episode gave you new insights and a spark to start planning with purpose.
Remember, growth happens one step at a time. Take something from today, whether it's a tool, a quote, or just a fresh perspective, and put it into action this week.
And don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone who's ready to plan their way to success.
We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media, like and follow, or just let us know how you're taking charge of your goals.
Until next time, keep building with grit, growing with intention, and leading with grace. We'll see you soon.